Raganatam vitam stam sadevam Sadvaitam savadutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Larita Shivishikhan vitam jam Narayanam namaskritam naram chaiva narottamam devam sarasatim vyasam tato jyodhira Nishtapriyashu badvishu nityam bhagata sevya Bhagavatyotama bhaktir bhavati naistikim Nigama koparugaridam param shukam mita dravya samidham Pibata bhagavatam rashamarayam mahora hora shika bhuvya bhagaham Krishna sadhum bhagate dhammavigana karonashta dvishamasha parana kodunodidam Namavam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvisheswani Vadi Praskadadyasan Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare I want to draw all of your attention Chris, Raleigh, Jimmy, Sanjay, Rakesh, to the fact I'm raising my arms as normal. In case you're wondering what the side effects of getting the vaccine are. Morning, Manasaganga. Wow, 7 comments already. Sanjay, happy inauguration day. I think everything will go smoothly considering the thousands and thousands of troops that are in Washington, D.C. Wisdom Wednesday, Ki Jai, Raleigh, Bye Bobby. Anjali, a number of people asked me to share my feedback on having gotten the vaccine. First of all, I asked the nurse which one it was, and she said it was the one that had to be, they both have to be frozen, but one at 30 degrees and one below zero. So the one that's at 30 degrees is the Modena, I think it's called. That's the one we got. The injection was painless. I didn't even feel it. I asked her, when are you going to inject me? And she said, I already did. I was told I'd be a little tired today and my arm would be sore. Haribo! Well, there's a slight soreness, but really. And I don't feel tired. I got up at my usual 5 a.m., walked 6 miles on the treadmill, chanted, and I'm here with you. Perky, feisty, full of vinegar. So, at least as far as any side effects, I don't think there are any to speak of. There aren't any worth mentioning. Good morning, Lakshmi Nishringa. Hari Hari Bo. Good morning, Ram Kishore. Chris again. Nice to be with you after our hiatus. Feels better. I feel more peacefully mentally, considering there's an even more infectious version of the COVID out there, to have taken whatever steps that were available to try to protect myself and my wife from this extremely infectious new strain of COVID. And I feel that the risks of a vaccination are minuscule compared to the risk of getting COVID, and especially from what I've heard of the long-term effects that it has on the various organs of the body. So, and as far as my date of expiration, that is known and arranged by Krishna. I can only do what's reasonable in my own mind to protect myself, but really the whole matter is in Krishna's hands. I think we're obliged to do what we can, take advantage of whatever resources are available. Most of us who are in our 70s wouldn't be around today were it not for vaccines like the polio vaccine, the smallpox vaccine. So Prabhupada wasn't against taking advantage of some of the better aspects of modern science. We talked extensively about our mother on Monday, who is the cow, and there's more to say about that. So let's revisit this verse here, which is the 8th verse, 4th chapter, 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sa go dahana matram hi grihashu grihamedanam avekshate mahabhagas tirti kurvans tadashmaram. Sukadeva Goswami was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did this just to sanctify his residence. Skipping ahead here down to where we left off, we mentioned that civilized human beings, of course, don't kill their mothers. That's called matricide, and it's considered amongst the most heinous of all crimes. Matricide means to kill your mother. Patricide means to kill your father. In a society where people contribute to killing their mother cow and their father the bull, who tills the fields and produces grains, puts food on the table, that is not a civilized society. That is an abominable society. And we discussed yesterday how civilized society adheres to 3 laws in respect of the cows. And in fact, the more civilized the society is, the higher they prioritize these 3 activities in relationship to the cow. And in traditional Vedic India, these 3 obligations were discharged before one's own shelter, before one's own food. One took care of the cows before oneself. Not only did not one take them away from their mothers when they're just born, and put the mothers in factory farms where they're milked by machines and pumped full of hormones and killed when they're no longer producing milk. Not only is that not going on in a civilized Vedic society, but the happiness, care, and protection of the cows was taken care of as a higher priority than even ourselves. And I know what you're saying. I know what the critics in this guy, yeah, you care more about animals than you care about human beings. But let me give you food for thought, if you have thoughts, original thoughts ever. And that is that as soon as you disregard the lives of even the most insignificant of God's children, it's just one short step to disregarding the lives of your own peers, your own fellow human beings. It's a slippery slope. Albert Schweitzer, a Nobel Prize winner, he said, as soon as you lose respect for any one part of life, you lose respect for all of life. And I think you'll find that people who have care and concern for the animals and the insects are more compassionate, more loving towards the human species than you, Mr. Cynic, Mr. Meathead, Mr. Critic. So if you have original thoughts, if you are open to any new way of, more compassionate, sensitive way of looking at things, there's my gift to you today. Otherwise, these 3 activities are engaged in as a higher priority. It's not that you don't take care of yourself, but you take care of your children, right, before yourself. So it's the same principle. The animals are your children, and amongst all the animals, 8,400,000 species of life, there are none more valuable. There are none who do greater service to human society than the cow who produces milk and the bull who produces grains. If I suggested to you, you take your pet dog and eat him for dinner, you'd think I'm a horribly insane, barbaric, insensitive, abominable sort of a person. Why? Because dog is man's best friend. But the dog doesn't do for man even a fractional part of what the cow does and what the bull could do. Literally, between the cow and the bull, you could meet all of your nutritional needs. And in taking care of these most generous and noble of all beings, you'll cultivate your higher spiritual sense and achieve credits for going back home, back to Godhead. Anjali says, I may not have too many original thoughts. Recycling Grandfather Prabhupada's greatest hits is much easier. No, I'm not talking about devoting. Then she says, no, ... not Lassie. Well, I also say not Lassie, but not Daisy either. Is that all right? Can we make a deal? Not Lassie, nor Daisy. Anyway, these are the 3 activities with all this build up. You're dying to know what they are. Very simple. Serving the cow, which is called Go Seva. Worshipping the cow one or 2 days a year. Treating the cow with respect and showing your gratitude. That's called Go Puja. And protecting the cow, not sending the old cows off for slaughter, but providing a little land, a simple shelter, some hay, so they can retire and live out their lives in peace and die a natural death. And for those of you who insist on eating the meat of the cow, once the cow expires, then the meat is there for consumption, the hide is there for leather. One needn't deprive oneself of one's flesh if one is bound to take it. Okay, moving on here from the points that we made yesterday, the Vedic scriptures say that all the demigods and demigoddesses are within the body of a cow. Now, Lord Krishna, as you know, when he descended 5,000 years ago, he engaged in the pastimes of a cowherd boy, the first 11 or 12 years of his life, and gave more importance to worship of the cows than he did to worship of the demigods. This was highlighted in the incidents where Krishna diverted all of the paraphernalia which had been annually used to worship Indra, the king of rain, to instead worship Govardhan Hill, where Krishna went every day with the calves for pasturing, and then also the cows. All that paraphernalia, all this foodstuffs and items which were normally used to worship Indra, the god of rain, in a very elaborate way, Krishna talked his father Nanda Maharaj out of doing that and instead used all that for the cows. So he's saying it's more important to worship the cows than it is to worship even Indra, the king of the demigods. So it said also here that, okay, let me just gather my thoughts because it's been 48 hours since I've engaged with you here. Okay, now when Indra realized the error of his ways and came down on his elephant carrier, both of whom bowed down to Lord Krishna, the elephant did abhishekam by way of apology. The elephant from its trunk sprayed Krishna with a nice liquid substance, which is a way of worshiping called abhishekam. And that water gathered in a little pond, which later became known as Govinda Kund. Govinda is a name for Krishna who loves the cows. And so when Krishna was protecting and even worshiping the cows over and above the worship of Indra, of course, he became celebrated by the name of Govinda, the protector and lover of cows. And when he was bathed by the elephant Arivat of Indra after this pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill, a kund, a little pond gathered, was there where the water had gathered, and that became known as Govinda Kund. Okay. That was 5,000 years ago. Now when Lord Chaitanya's guru's guru, Madhavendra Puri, discovered a deity, a Gopal Krishna deity, which had been hidden away in the jungles, the whereabouts of this deity came to him in a dream. He went, he found the deity, and he established a temple for the deity there in Vrindavan. Anytime you establish a deity, it's called pran pratishthan. You again have to do an abhishekam. And that abhishekam, that bathing, is comported with all kinds of auspicious substances, mango juice, milk, butter, ghee. Most of those substances are derived from the cow. So when Madhavendra Puri did the pran pratishthan of the Gopal deity in the temple in Vrindavan, this is a verse which we encounter in that connection. It's in the Madhya Lila, 4th chapter, 51st verse. Panchagavya, Panchagavya, Panchamanita Shnana Karana, Mahashnana Karya, Shata Gata Dina. It says, after the first bathing, further bathings were conducted with Panchagavya. That means 5 things, 5 byproducts from the cow. They're considered the most auspicious of all substance. And then after the Panchagavya, the 5 substances which come from the cow, Anjali says, go seva, go puja, go question, go raksha, which means protection of the cows. Then the deity is bathed with panchamrita. Now, panchamrita is also yogurt, it's ghee, it's milk, and then it's honey, and then some fruit juice. So 3 out of the 5 panchamritas are also from the cow. So out of the 10 things that one offers, pours over the deity at the time of installation, 8 of them come from the cow. So it's described here in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then the Mahasnana was performed with ghee and water, which had been brought in 100 pots from Govinda Kund. Well, 500 years ago, when Madhavendra Puri installed the Gopal deity in Vrindavan, he took water from the Govinda Kund, which is where Indra, his elephant, had bathed Krishna 5,000 years ago, mixed that water from Govinda Kund with milk and butter and yogurt and ghee from the cows that were current at that time, and very auspiciously and elaborately and gorgeously installed the Gopal deity by doing the Shnan, the Mahashnan. Here it's also described the glories of Govinda Kund. This is in the 5th wave of the Bhakti Ratnagara. E Sri Govinda Kunda Mahima Anaka, Ete Indra Kaila Govindera Abhisheka. Govinda Kund is exalted for its many spiritual activities. It was here that Indra, defeated by Lord Govinda, offered prayers to him and bathed him. In the book Stavali Vrajavilasha Stava 74, the following verse is found, and this relates to that 5,000-year-old pastime of Indra surrendering to Krishna. It says, with humility caused by great fear, Indra took hold of the lotus feet of Krishna, and in the company of a Sarabi cow, performed Krishna's coronation festival by bathing him with the waters of the heavenly Ganges river. Thus Lord Krishna's kingship over the cows became splendidly manifest. One of the many qualities of a pure devotee is poetic. Isn't it wonderful how Prabhupada translates and comments on this verse? May I read it to you once again? Thus, being anointed and bathed by the Sarabi cow, the milk of the Sarabi cow, and by the waters of the Ganges, Lord Krishna's kingship over cows became splendidly manifest. Excuse me just for a moment while I shiver in ecstasy and the goosebumps erupt from various parts of my body. The prayer continues, I pray that Govinda Kund, the lake created by that ceremonial bath, may eternally appear before my eyes. Here it is also explained, the ingredients of Panchagavya are milk, yogurt, ghee, cow urine, and cow dung. Those are the 5 elements of Panchagavya. Of course, they come from the cow. Prabhupada says, therefore, when 8 of the 10 elements to install a deity, there's no more auspicious observance in Indian culture than the establishment of a temple and the installation of a deity. It doesn't get any more pure or sanctified than that. And out of the 10 elements used to install the deity, 8 of them for a cow. Prabhupada says, therefore, we can just imagine how important the cow is, since even its urine and stool are required for bathing the deity. The Panchamrita itself consists of 5 kinds of nectar, yogurt, milk, ghee, honey, and sugar. The major portion of this preparation, as I just mentioned, comes from the cow, and to make it more palatable, sugar and honey are added. Prabhupada says, if we accept the cow as our mother, and we should do so, we only drink the milk of our human mother for a year and a half or so, I'm guessing, because I don't remember how long I drank my mother's milk. But I'm guessing that's a ballpark figure. We continue, I'm 74 years old, and I still drink a little cow's milk every day, not excessively. Prabhupada said, once you wean yourself, once you get past the period of nursing and your body is mature, say around 20-ish or so, then there isn't any need anymore to take excessive cow products. He said 12 ounces a day in the form of milk or yogurt or butter or ghee is more than enough for an adult human being. But we do continue to consume the milk or the milk transformed of the mother throughout our entire lives. So as the milk of our natural mother sustains us, the milk for a year or two, the milk of our other mother, the cow, sustains us throughout our whole lives. So, therefore, QED, she deserves our veneration and love. We should protect her from all dangers. And in the Vedic culture, it was the duty of everyone, especially the kings, especially the leaders, to protect the cows at all costs. Imagine how many of our leaders today take that duty seriously. Just the opposite. Federal government subsidizes the meat industry in America $39 billion every year. $39 billion. That's how you get cheap meat. Otherwise, there's nothing cheap about meat, with all the land that it takes to produce meat, all the water, all the refrigeration that it takes to transport it here and there, all the diseases, the heart disease, the coronary, the arteriosclerosis, all of the medical issues that come from a meat-centered diet. It is like if everyone were to drive a Cadillac, what a burden it would put on the highways, on the gasoline, the oil, and all the resources that it needs to maintain that inflated, artificial, consumeristic lifestyle. And when you eat meat, it's like you're driving a Cadillac. You're consuming the maximum amount of resources and violating God's laws. In the Ishopanishad, Ishavashamidam sarvam yat kincham jagat tena chitena rita yat buddhate mat. I forget the last verse. But it said God has created all living beings. He claims all living beings, not just humans, but all living beings as his sons and daughters, parts and parcels. And as he manifests the living beings, he also provides for their maintenance. Prashant comes up with some interesting facts here. The American government spends $38 billion each year to subsidize meat and dairy, but only 0.04% of that, 17 million, as opposed to 38 billion, to subsidize fruits and vegetables. The federal government's dietary guidelines urge us to eat more fruits and vegetables and less cholesterol-rich food. And Prashant has come up with a source. It's called Meat-onomics, right there in the comments section. Excellent contribution, Prakash. Well, aren't we lucky? I think you guys should go into the comments and put a hand clap or something there for Prakash, because he just enriches our get-togethers so much, you know. You might be out there listening passively, kick back with your morning herbal tea, but Prashant is like, he's putting down the breadcrumbs. He's following whatever verses and whatever reference we make, and even anticipating in some cases some of the things that we're going to say and the directions that we're going to go in. Here we find from the Antilila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 17th chapter, 12th verse. Singadwara Dakshina Ache, Tailangi Gabi Gana, Tahanyai Padila Prabhu, Hana Achetana. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed with us for 48 years. The first 24 years he spent in Bengal, and the last 24 years of his life he spent in Jagannath Puri. And of the last 24 years of his life in Jagannath Puri, the last 12 years, he was pretty much swooning. He was in a trance-like state, in total immersion in Krishna consciousness and love of God, often not even aware of his external surroundings. When he was beside himself with love of God, his disciples sometimes feared for his safety. One time he was found floating in the ocean because he mistook it for the Yamuna River in Vrindavan. And so what they did was at night, they would lock him in a room called Gambara, no windows, and the door was locked. And yet one morning they came, unlocked the door. Lord Chaitanya wasn't there. He'd gotten out of this escape-proof room. They frantically looked all over Jagannath Puri to try to find where Lord Chaitanya had gotten himself to. Where do you think that was? Finally, they found him in a cow shed on the southern side of the Lion's Gate, the Shingadora in front of the temple. The Lord had gotten himself, of all places, into the shed with the cows and fell down unconsciousness amongst his favorite animals, the cows. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 17th chapter, 8th verse, Maharaj Parikshit had been installed as the king. He was the grandson of Arjuna. He was a worthy heir from a worthy dynasty. All of the Pandavas, as far back as you could go, were great devotees, great warriors, great kings, great protectors of the innocent. The Pandavas, being heartbroken at the departure of Lord Krishna back to his own abode, gave up their kingship and went to the Himalayas to do austerities and prepare to leave their bodies and follow Lord Krishna back home, back to God. But they didn't neglect the kingdom. They had trained and groomed Maharaj Parikshit from birth to follow in their footsteps and to lead the kingdom with righteousness and justice. They installed him feeling good about his abilities, his competence to rule the kingdom in the way that it had been ruled for tens of thousands of years prior. They departed and went for the Himalayas. One of the first challenges that Maharaj Parikshit had, in those days the kings would tour the kingdom to make sure everyone was following Dharma, religiosity. As Maharaj Parikshit was touring some of the outlying provinces, he came upon something that had never before been witnessed in the entire history of human society, what to speak of the Kaurava Pandava dynasty. He saw a low-class man in the process of torturing a cow. Maharaj Parikshit's jaw dropped, his eyes got wide. He could not believe his eyes. Nowadays, there are how many millions of cows killed in America alone? How many billions of other animals, all total, killed? We've totally become desensitized to it. So what? But Maharaj Parikshit could not believe his eyes. He says, this is again the 8th verse, 17th chapter, 1st canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Na jatu kuravendaranam durdanda bhutalin patanti ashmin vina te praninam suchaha. Maharaj Parikshit, upon seeing this horrible sight, he says, now for the first time, and he felt ashamed that on his watch this would happen, but it wasn't really his fault because Kali Yuga was knocking at the door. And in fact, this was the personality of Kali, who was harassing and torturing the cow, who is the symbol of religious, pious, righteous life. It says, for the first time, Najatu Kuravandaranam. Najatu means never before in a kingdom ruled by the Kauravas. Najatu Kuravandaranam has ever an innocent creature, even a cow, what to speak of a human being, ever been tortured on our watch. It says, and he said to the cow, I see you grieving with tears in your eyes. Up to now, no one on earth has ever shed tears because of royal negligence. And then he said to Kali, with great anger in his eyes and having drawn his sword, he was prepared to kill the man that was killing a cow. He was prepared to do that. He thought that killing a cow was as grievous a sin as killing a man. In fact, in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that exact statement is made by the Lord. He says, he who killeth an ox, it is as if he killeth a man. Maharaj Parikshit had his sword drawn and ready to strike. He said to Kali, Anagishu ebudishu, yagaskanin, hardashmi bujachasha, amarta shapi sangana. Even if you were Indra, the king of heaven, if you were any of the demigods, it doesn't matter what your stature, what your exaltation would be. I would not make any exceptions. Anyone who causes pain and suffering to a cow, I will mete out equal punishment. Ram Kishore says, he got the facts for me. 2 billion, I guess this is in all of the history of America, it says 2,934,000,000. Well, no, 2,934,523,000 animals have been killed as of today. I don't know, I guess that means in our whole history, 3 billion animals have been killed as of today. You got that from a website, clock.org. Thank you guys for supplying me the facts and figures on this here. It is also stated, confirming Maharaj Parikshit's righteous anger, that he's not wrong in wanting to cut down even a demigod for the unpardonable sin of killing our mother cow. In the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charita, 17th chapter, 166 verse, we find this word, this statement: Go anga yate loma tata shahasha vatsara govadi rarava madhe pache narantara. Cow killers are condemned to rot in hellish life. This is heavy, I'm warning you. For as many thousands of years as there are hairs on the body of a cow. They're condemned to rot in hellish life for as many thousands of years as there are hairs on the body of the cow. In the Vedic literature, we find this revealing story of Emperor Dalip. He was an ancestor of Lord Ramachandra in the Raghuvamsa, the Sun dynasty. And this goes back many tens of thousands of years. And once when Emperor Dalip was in the forest, he saw that a ferocious lion had gotten hold of a cow and was going to kill her. The emperor challenged the lion, if you kill the cow, I will kill you. I'll let this cow go free. The lion replied, oh, pious king, this is my food. I have to kill this animal to live. If you force me to let this cow go free, then you'll be guilty of the sin of killing me. I will die of hunger. So Emperor Dalip thought for a few moments, and then he replied, this is the king of the world. Think about this. His reply was, if you let this cow go free, you don't have to die of hunger. Why? I offer you my body to eat. Let my body be your food. Amazingly, as soon as Emperor Dalip lay down as prey before the lion to be killed, so that the lion could eat him and sustain its life, the lion on the one hand and the cow on the other hand transformed themselves into Dharma, the God of truth and righteousness personified. That was the lion. And the cow, of course, always and forever personifies Mother Earth, who gives from her womb all the things that we need to maintain ourselves. So this had been a test for the emperor's commitment to cow protection. That was expected of the emperor, that any of the praja is a Sanskrit word which means citizens of the state. Well, we know that the duty of the executive head and the military and the defense system is to protect all the citizens of the state. But in the Vedic times, the animals were also considered citizens. And no animal, what to speak of the cow or the bull, would ever suffer because of royal neglect. Maharaj Parikshit was crestfallen. He was ashamed that while he was king, this had gone on or commenced for the first time in the history of human society. And later on, he spared Kali's life. Kali prostrated himself before Maharaj Parikshit, and Maharaj Parikshit had mercy upon him and spared his life. Then Kali asked that he be allowed to go wherever there are brothels, wherever there are restaurants serving meat, wherever there are gambling places, and wherever there's intoxication. Maharaj Parikshit said, I will allow you to live in my kingdom, but only in these places: gold, prostitution, meat eating, and intoxication. So Kali thought he'd pulled a fast one on Maharaj Parikshit. Said he'd saved his life by prostrating himself before the king. He'd gotten concessions from the king. The king allowed him to stay in the places where Kali wanted to stay anyway. Kali had no attraction to stay in peaceful places where there's vegetarian food being served and saints and sages, people in general, are honoring God. Kali got exactly what he wanted. He wanted to be banished to places where there's prostitution, illicit sex, gambling, meeting. So then he went away from that encounter, that place of Mars Parikshit, looking for these places in which to reside. He couldn't find any. 5,000 years ago, there were no such places in the kingdom of Mars Parikshit. Therefore, it's said that Kali entered into a conspiracy with Takshaka in order to infect the Brahmin boy Shringi with immaturity and premature anger, that Mars Parikshit could be cursed to die within 7 days by the bite of a snake bird. Because Kali realized that as long as Mars Parikshit was the king, there would be no slaughterhouses, there would be no killing of animals, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. Therefore, Mars Parikshit had to be removed from the scene. And that was inevitable in any case. The Kali Yuga age should have begun many years previously when Lord Krishna departed from the world. Krishna's departure was the sign of the onset of Kali Yuga. But it was Mars Parikshit stepping into the breach, holding back the floodwaters, that actually kept the Kali Yuga from happening. So Kali felt frustrated. He felt cheated and betrayed because it was his time, but Mars Parikshit was keeping him from running rife all over the earth and seeing the establishment of places of prostitution, illicit sex, and gambling. So Mars Parikshit was condemned to die within 7 days. And that was also the arrangement of the Lord, because we wouldn't be here discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. We wouldn't have at our disposal the remedial measures for this age. It said that it's a terrible age full of all kinds of sinful activities, whereas sins like meat eating were the rare exception. They were unheard of in the previous age. It is righteousness and integrity which is the exception, which is almost unheard of in the current age. Finishing up here, Wisdom Wednesday. Bahirantas jabutaram acharam charam shukshma tadatirge darasham chantikejana. 16th verse, 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The principle of integrity and righteousness and accountability comes from this view of God. The supreme truth exists both internally and externally in the moving and non-moving. He is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. When one realizes that God is everywhere, then you realize you can't get away with anything. There's no percentage in lying, cheating, reverting, and sinful activities. You can do something unmentionable in the dead of night, but because God is within each and every atom, he's within your heart, you're not going to get away with it. You can break the laws of the state and avoid detection, but you cannot break the laws of God without being witnessed every step of the way. Prabhupada said in more traditional India, if you go back 100 years or so, there's a milkman. When I was a kid, we had milkman. We actually had someone that would deliver bottles of milk on the doorstep. That's no longer the case. But in India, even to this day, there's a milkman, and he delivers milk in containers at your doorstep. Now, 50, 100 years ago, you got milk. There was a joke. A lady noticed that as the decades went on, from the time she had been a girl to the time she was a senior citizen, the milk, which was daily deposited at her doorstep, got thinner and thinner and thinner as time wore on. And one day she challenged the milkman. She said, when I was younger, we had thick milk with cream. It was 100% milk. Now it seems like you're watering down the milk. And the milkman said to her, he said, lady, you've got it all wrong. He said, we're selling water, and to do you a favor, we put a little milk in it. So this cheating, this rationalization, all comes from losing the sense of God as being the witness. Upadashtana martacha bharta bhakta paramatmi dehi shmin purushamparam. Krishna's in the heart. There's nothing that gets past him. There's nothing that escapes him. You might as well be honest. You might as well be straightforward. You might as well respect God and respect the entities that God himself respects, such as the cows, because you're not going to slip one past God. You're accountable to him. Now, if he tells you to eat this and don't eat this, to drink this and don't drink this, and to associate with them and don't associate with them, he does this. He's not trying to spoil your life, but he's only asking you not to do certain things so that he can open doors, open opportunities, release favor in your life to a level that you've never experienced before. God always wants the best for us. Anything he tells us to do is always for our own good. Of all the things that Krishna prioritized, when he personally took the trouble to descend all the way from the spiritual world to this material world 5,000 years ago, he took for himself the role of the protector of the cows in his childhood pastimes. He executed par excellence to set an example for all time, all places, and all men. Go seva, the service of the cow. Go puja, the worship of the cow. And go raksha, the protection of the cow. We neglect these three prime duties in the human form of life as exemplified by the Supreme Personality of God in himself, Gopala, Govinda, at our own risk. As I mentioned, my wife and I went and we took advantage of the vaccine yesterday. We got our first shot yesterday, the Modena. If you weren't with us in the beginning of the broadcast, I can allay any fears you have about side effects. It is nothing. I asked the lady, when are you going to give me the shot? She said, I already did. It was painless. I didn't even feel it. They said my arm would be sore, but look at this. They said I would be a little tired today. Do I look like someone who's tired to you? So don't worry about the side effects. And sure, we're grateful that modern science, with the brains that God gave us, have come up with a vaccine to hopefully allay, mitigate this plague that ravages our society now. But can I tell you that that vaccine is only addressing the immediate cause? The remote cause of such things as pandemics is our transgressing the laws of God, the most basic of which is thou shalt not kill. So until we address the remote cause and give up meat in our diet, there will be one pandemic after another. It is short-sighted and ultimately self-defeating to deal with only the immediate cause, only the symptom, and be too lazy, too complacent, too self-rationalizing to face the remote cause, which is that we're eating meat, breaking the laws of God. There can never be any happiness, either individually or collectively, if God is displeased. And nothing displeases the Lord more than causing misery and suffering to our mother cow and father bull. And that is the best drop of wisdom that I could possibly give you on this Wisdom Wednesday. Maitreya says root causes and radical solutions. Yeah, Sanjay says selling water and adding milk. Lakshmi Nisringa says in Puerto Rico they have ahimsa organic milk. That is what you want. Ahimsa organic milk, which builds finer tissues within the brain so we can understand God and heartfeltedly glorify him by chanting his holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you for your comments. I can only see 4, 3 of which are from Maitreya and 1 of which is from Sanjay. Let's also see who is with us here. Everybody who's liked this message, and we applaud those who click the like button because that helps us get more exposure in the society in general. Sanjay, click the like button. Vaibhavi, Subhadra, Onkar, Sohag, Thanks for joining us, Sohag. Raquel and Sean. Rakesh. Samudura Nanda Sutta. Samudura Nanda Sutta. Now I can't, it's not letting me scroll down any further for some reason. Isn't that bizarre? Isn't that, it's only letting me see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the, so many people, the scrolling doesn't go any further. Let me see here. Okay, I can see a few more. Okay, here we go. Oh, I don't know if I can pronounce this. Iyeubwaboli Uzoma. Maybe you can, in the comment section, give us the phonetic way you can pronounce that. But thanks very much for joining us. Anjali, Sundari Priya, Lakshmi, Ram Kishore, Manasaganga, Chris, Raleigh, Jimmy, Maitreya, Pranapada, Jean, and Rupa Manjari. Thanks so much for putting up with our having missed yesterday, but hopefully it'll be in the interests of myself and Bhai Bobby being around for a longer period of time. Ultimately, it's up to Krishna, and we can only surrender to his will, but we have to do what we can reasonably do in the meantime to keep ourselves fit for the devotional service of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.